a child of God.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday morning, May the 27th, 2021. And today is my firstborn son, Rivka, and our firstborn son's birthday, 22 years old today. Happy birthday to Giovanni. And he was actually born on a Thursday. So it's 22 years on another Thursday. And I can't believe we've been parents for 22 years now. All right. Well, good morning to everybody. Good morning to my mom. I love you, Mama. Good morning to the Eddies. Good morning to Lauren and Levi and Valor and Haven and Everett. Good morning, you guys. And to John and Wendy and Emma and Sutton. Good morning. And to John and Jan, Pat and Lori. Good morning to you all. Buenos dias to Elva and Jim and Sarah and Nicole, good morning to you. And Ron and Amy, good morning to Ron and Amy, and to Jerry and Janet. And let me pop over here and say good morning, good afternoon to Pastor and Sister Martinez. And let me take a glance here. And I think for right now, that's everybody. And good morning to Carol and to Sonia and Margarita. All right. Well, we are in Zechariah 10 this morning. I'm going to read just kind of closing some of the verses from Zechariah 9 to get us to this point. As the Lord's word is marching, there's his conquering word in Zechariah 9, we're stunned to see that this mighty conqueror says, "Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, look, your king is coming to you." And look, he's a righteous one, bringing salvation. See, this is the hope of Israel, right? He is lowly, mounted on a donkey, riding on a donkey. His chariot is a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey, a little donkey, a baby donkey. He says, I will banish, I will cut off chariots from Ephraim and horses from Jerusalem, or war horses from Jerusalem, and the war bow will be broken. He will speak shalom to the nations. His rule will extend from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth, and pointing to this, the idealized, what the king of Israel is always supposed to have been, a reflection of God's rule, of God's reign. And so this, behold, your king is coming, and he is coming to bring peace. He's coming on a donkey. He's coming one who is humble, and he's cutting off the war horses and chariots. It continues, and if you go down to verse 16, it says, Adonai, their God, will save them. On that day, as the flock of his people, they will be like gems of a crown. They'll be like stones that are in what is set apart on his head, on a nezer, like from the word Nazarite or Nazareth, but the stones of the Nazarite, of the crown, sparkling or conspicuous. They're like banners over his land. How good and beautiful it will be. Grain will make the young men thrive, and new wine the virgin women, or grain in the young men, fresh wine flourishing in the young women. So Zechariah 10 now just flows right from that picture, right from these themes of restoration, this picture of what was broken and dry and barren and overcome with, just war-torn, and is now being restored, and there's this flourishing newness in life. And so you have this continued theme of bounty and joy that God's people will receive when this king comes. And so with that in mind, now the Lord wants his people to as he's promising a restoration. But with that restoration, now, while they've been in exile, right? While they were in exile, he wanted to form in them a heart to know him, to really know him, to walk in his ways, to trust in him. Back when they first came into the land, when Moses was leading them into the land in Deuteronomy, they had been they'd come from Egypt. Obviously, it had been at that point 40 years because they'd been wandering in the desert. But in Egypt, when you went to work the land, to farm the land, the agriculture of Egypt was rooted in the Nile, right? So Egypt's agriculture wasn't based on rain. It was based on a river that was already there, that if you worked hard enough and smart enough, you could irrigate that water and flood the banks, flood the land, and if so you could work it. You could work, and the river was always there. The river was always flowing with water. And so there is within Egypt sort of a self-reliance, a dependence on yourself. You can do this, but coming into the land, in the land of Israel, in the Promised Land, there's no major bodies of water. I mean, yeah, there's the Sea of Galilee. It's a lake, It's a lake. It's a big lake, but it's a lake. And the river flowing from it, the Jordan, is not very impressive. I mean, it's not very wide. It's not very deep. It's not a massive river. It's not a river that'll feed the land. In Israel, in the land, the Lord is bringing them in, and he's saying, look, there's a difference between the way water works here, the way your sustenance here is. You're looking to me. You're going to be looking to me. You're going to be dependent on me for your fields, he says in Deuteronomy 11, verse 10, for the land you're going in to possess is not like the land of Egypt from which you came. There you planted your seed and watered it by foot, like a vegetable garden. But the land you are crossing over to possess is a land of hills and valleys. Drinking from the rain of the heavens, it drinks in water. It is a land that Adonai your God cares for. The eyes of Adonai your God are always on it, from the beginning of the year up to the end of the year. Now, if you listen obediently to my mitzvot, to my commands that I am commanding you today, to love Adonai your God and to serve him with all your heart and soul, then I will give rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the late rain. And the early rain is actually in the fall, and the late rain is in the spring. So that you may gather in your grain, new wine and olive oil. I will give grass in your field for your livestock, and you will eat and be satisfied. And the Lord says, this isn't going to be based on how hard you work the land. You're going to be dependent upon me, looking to me for rain. And so what the Lord knew was that in the land, there could arise the temptation to look to, like, if perhaps you feel like you're concerned the Lord's not acting fast enough, the rain's not coming when you thought it would, that maybe you would look to the other gods, the other deities of the region. Many of the false gods of the region were tied to the need for, the desire for rain. So, for instance, in the land of Canaan, the function of needing the storm god was Baal. The rain, the praying to Baal worship, Baal worship, Baal worship, who Baal is called the rider on the clouds, was central to this need for rain. And so in Deuteronomy, the Lord in advance gives this warning. He continues in Deuteronomy 11, verse 16, says, watch yourselves, so your heart is not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then the anger of Adonai will be kindled against you, so he will shut up the sky, so there will be no rain, and the soil will not yield its produce. Then you will perish quickly from the good land Adonai is giving you. And so when you've gone through, at this point, we're on the other side of exile, right? So you'll remember when we went through Jeremiah 14 and 15, and the Lord was directly dealing with the issue of drought, and it had come to a point where, back up to Eliyahu and the 3.5 years of drought in the land. God trying to get the attention of the people, get the attention of the king of Ahab, and the prophets of Baal, going nuts, cutting themselves, going crazy, praying for rain, praying for fire. Actually, send lightning, send fire from. There's nothing, and then Elijah prays this simple prayer: Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God. And the fire comes down from heaven and consumes the sacrifice of the altar. And then soon after, the rain comes. The Lord opens the heavens. And so you see that. And then by the time you get to Jeremiah 14 and 15, the Lord's telling Jeremiah, don't even intercede at this point, because they're asking about the droughts. And not to get into that, but we've seen now the judgment that they've faced has been because they've continually run after other gods. And so now that the Lord's restoring them to the land, now in Zechariah, he's talking to this people, and then speaking even forward, but talking to those who have been restored to the land, saying, don't repeat the errors of yesterday. I'm doing something in your midst, and then there's a full restoration, a restoration that he begins to speak of as this chapter goes on, that is beyond, that when you've been scattered to the point of hopelessness, that the hope is still there, that you can count on the Lord bringing restoration. So he opens up in verse 1 saying, ask Adonai for rain in spring, right? For the malchosh, for the late rains, for the spring rains. Adonai makes the storm clouds, and he will give rain showers. It says Adonai makes the thunderclap. He's the one in charge of the storms. He will give rain showers and plants of the field to everyone. So he said, don't turn to Baal, don't turn to anyone for that matter. Turn to me. Ask Adonai for rain. You ask me for rain, he says. I'm the one. The Lord is the one who makes the storm clouds. He's the one that gives the rain showers and plants of the fields to everyone. In verse 2, it says, the idols utter deceit. Now, the word for idols here is teraphim, which isn't a word that's used too often. It's only used, I think, about seven times or 7 or 8 times in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's used when speaking of the idols that Rachel had stolen from her father Laban in Genesis. In Judges 17:5 and 18:5, teraphim functioned in rituals for the divining or the divination of future events. They're primarily, yes, they're idols, but their primary function when you're speaking of teraphim have to do with waiting for an oracle, waiting for an utterance, waiting for a word. And so it says the words that you're getting, your idols, your teraphim, you're waiting for these oracles. What they are uttering is avin. It says deceit here, but it's iniquity. It's a twisting. It's sin. They're uttering it twisting truth. And your diviners, right? V'hachosmim is these diviners is speaking of divination in general. So it's a more of a general term for diviners rather than a specific, method of it. It says your diviners, they see lies or they have visions, kazu shecher, they have visions of deception. They relate false dreams. It says the revelatory dreams, the word for dreams has to do like dream. I had dreams and visions, and they're revelatory dreams, that their dreams are revealing something that they're speaking of are empty. They're vanity. They're wind. It says they speak their false dreams, and it's just wind. And their comfort, their words of comfort. There's going to be rain, These false gods, these diviners, everyone that got in Deuteronomy 18, the Lord expressly prohibited divination and this occultism. But here they are coming. People are looking for comfort. What's going to happen? I need to know the future, and I'll look anywhere. Somebody tell me what will make me feel better. And it says, and their comfort is empty. It's futile. It's breath. Their comfort is nothing. Therefore, as a result, the people wander like sheep. Their journey is the journey of sheep, afflicted because there is no shepherd. Right there, the people this has been the condition. This had been the condition. This is how we got to the point where we were in exile. The people wandered because there were like sheep, because there was no shepherd. Listening to this false, empty nothing. Nobody speaking truth. And then and remember in Jeremiah and a handful of others, we would come to find at different points, are speaking forth the truth. But they're just running to what their itching ears want to hear. There's the focus on shepherds. We get a little hint of it here in chapter 10 of Zechariah. Zechariah 11 is going to be really centered on dealing with shepherds. And one of the more famous passages dealing with the shepherds of Israel, of course, is not only Jeremiah 23, but Ezekiel 34. Without reading the entirety of the passage, Ezekiel 34, 5 and 6, and you'll remember Ezekiel prophesied. Ezekiel was one of the exiles, so he was in Babylon and prophesying in Babylon. And says they were scattered for lack of a shepherd. Speaking of God's people, they became food for all the beasts of the field as they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains, on every high hill, over all the face of the earth. My sheep were scattered. No one searched. No one sought. So that's the picture you have here at the end of verse 2, is that you're getting empty direction, empty comfort. There's no one actually watching out for my sheep, and so they're afflicted. Their journey is because they have no shepherd. No one's shepherding them. Verse 3 says, my anger burns against the shepherds. Against or upon the shepherds, my anger is kindled. The anger is off is the flaring of your nostrils. And he says, and I will punish the leaders. Now, the word he uses for punish here is pakad, which has to do with one who attends to. I'm going to attend to this. So the word pakad can mean, it's often used as a word for punish or judge. Like, I'm going to attend to this. When God comes to attend to you, when he comes to pakad, the nature of that tending is going to be based on how you're walking with him. So when you think you're walking in secret and you're a shepherd that is leading the people astray and doing all these things or whatever it is, when he comes to have a sit down with you because he knows and he sees, it's a problem, right? So that's the nature of pakad here. He says, I will pakad the leaders, and the word for the leaders here is like the rams. So you have the sheep who are the flock, and then the word used for leaders against the rams, those who have the horns, those who are to be leading them. When you read and continue in the Ezekiel 34 passage, the Lord deals with the fat sheep and the lean sheep, and how the fat sheep are eating up everything from the lean sheep, not caring about the lean. So he's going to deal with the rams. He's going to deal with the leaders. And the next, he continues, it says, Adonai Tzavaot cares for his flock. Same word, pakad. Attends to his flock. So it's the same word, and you're going to have a meeting. He's meeting with his flock. But when you're broken, when you're in the place of brokenness, crushed, having been not the abuser, but the abused. When you're the abuser and he comes to attend to you, watch out. But when you're the abused and he comes to tend to you, there's comfort there. There's restoration there. So he attends to his flock. He attends to the rams and he attends to his flock. His flock, the house of Judah. And so as he attends to the house of Judah, it says, he will make them his valiant steed in battle. Right? He will make them like a majestic horse in battle. I want to, before I get to that part, I want to look at a couple of the passages from Ezekiel 34. Ezekiel 34:11, thus says Adonai Elohim, here I am. I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out. As a shepherd seeks out his sheep on the day he is among his scattered flock, so I will seek out my sheep. I will rescue them out of all the places where they have been scattered on a day of cloud and thick darkness. I will bring them out from the peoples. I will gather them from the countries. I will bring them back to their own land. I will shepherd them upon the mountains of Israel, by the streams, and in all the habitable places of the land. Verse 16, the Lord says, I will seek the lost, bring back the stray, bind up the broken, and strengthen the sick. But the fat and strong I will destroy. I will tend them with justice. So you have that him tending, how he tends, when he tends with justice, you want to be on the right side of that, on the side of what is just. Verse 20 continues, says, therefore thus says Adonai Elohim to them, look, behold, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep. Because you thrust with your side and with shoulder and gore all the weak with your horns until you've scattered them all over. So there's a picture of these rams, right? Just thrusting in their strength, thrusting the weak, not caring for the weak, goring at the weak. They're scattered, get it? And so that all the food is for them. All I can just eat of the what's in front of me and not care about the sheep. Verse 22, he says, I will save my flock. They will no longer be prey. I will judge between sheep and sheep. Verse 23, so I will set up one shepherd over them, my servant David. He will tend them. He will feed them himself and be their shepherd. I, Adonai, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince among them. I, Adonai, have spoken. Right, so now you have it. It says, Adonai cares for his flock, the house of Judah. And he makes the house of Judah his war horse, his horse in battle, his horse majestic in battle. So the warrior is the one on the horse now. Judah is carrying him. He is riding. He's the one fighting. But he's chosen Judah to be the one that he rides into battle. And so it continues, verse 4, from Judah. Now, this runs into verse 4, which actually is it's like staccato in its delivery. There's this word mimenu, from him. It doesn't actually say from Judah. It says from him. From him, mimenu pina. From him, the corner, the cornerstone. From him, the tent peg. From him, the battle bow. From him, every leader going out, or every leader together. But it's every leader, and from him going forth, every ruler in unity together. So you have this mimenu pina. The first thing is the corner, right? So that the corner is like the cornerstone. It's a picture of stability, the corner of a structure. And of course, we've looked in the past at when we went through the letters through 1 Peter in particular, looking at the cornerstone. At Yeshua as the cornerstone, as the stable, the starting point. From him, the cornerstone. Then he says, from him, the peg, the tent peg, the nail. A tent peg, it's what secures the tent to the ground. So again, stability. You also have this picture, it's the same word in Isaiah 54 too, where it says, enlarge the place of your tent, stretch out your tabernacle curtains. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your tent pegs, your stakes. And so there's the extending, the opening of God's tent. And so from him, the corner. From him, the tent peg, the stability. It's also the word that can be used upon which everything hangs. Like a nail or a stake upon which everything hangs. It's a strong... That's why it can be a tent peg to hold up the place of your dwelling, or it can be put in a wall to hold up something heavy. It's a picture of stability that comes from him. Everything hangs on him. Everything is stabilized, is founded upon him, from him, and continues from him. From him is the mimenu keshet milchama. From him, a bow of war. So from him is the bow of the battle. And again, you have this picture back in chapter 9 in verse 13. He talked about how Judah was his bow, right? And Ephraim his arrows. That the Lord is using Judah and Ephraim together, the north and the bringing into unity his people, using them together. He's the one firing them. And it's from him. From him is where the bow of battle for battle. And then the final thing, it says mimenu yetzeh kol noges yachdav. From him they will come or they will go forth, every ruler together. Now typically the word for ruler here is the word is noges, which is typically a word that's used negatively in the Hebrew scriptures, having to do with oppressors, honestly, those who are oppressors, taskmasters, and so it's normally used in that way, the people who are the rich against the poor. So it says, from him, your taskmasters will go out or go forth together. So either they'll be gone, but there's another picture in Isaiah 67, verse 17, 60, verse 17. The term is used, it's taking its negative sense and turning it on its head. He says in the back end of verse 17, he says, I will make Shalom your overseer. And that word, by the way, overseer, is pikud, so sometimes mean the one who's going to attend to you, the one who's going to meet with you. The one that's going to meet with you is Shalom. That's going to be when the one who judges you, like your attendant is, your pikud is Shalom. And he says, and righteousness, and I will make righteousness your taskmasters. So there's this, so that was, instead of being oppressed by the brokenness of this world, what will be ruling over us is righteousness. And so you can have that picture can be in mind, that God is going to send out together all at one, in one shot, your taskmasters, yachdav, all at one, together, gone. And because the Lord, from him is the stability. From him everything hangs. From him is the battle. And from him will the oppressors go out or go forth, and there will be his rule. And so as he sends them out, these rulers going forth are not going forth in their own strength. It continues in verse 5, says, they will be like mighty men, treading down muddy streets in war. So that's where we know now from verse 5 that the word that's typically used of oppressors is used in a positive sense here. Your rulers, it's used more of just your rulers that are coming from him, and ruling in righteousness. And they're going to be treading, like, they're going to be like, you have that picture of warriors who are like, it's Givorim, they're just warriors, and they're just muddy, treading down the streets, covered in mud. And they're fighting, it says they will fight because Adonai is with them, and will put horsemen to shame. These guys are treading down the streets. The picture is they're treading down the streets, and the riders on horses, the chariot, those mounted on horses will be taken down by them. Again, they're fighting not in their own strength, but because Adonai is with them. Now the back half of this is going to go much more quickly. So he says, I will give strength. I will strengthen the house of Judah and save the house of Joseph. So now it begins to shift from the back end of this, begins to focus more on the house of Joseph. It's that he's strengthening the house of Judah. He's talked about bringing back Judah. We know Judah has come back, but the 10 tribes are scattered even further. The 10 tribes that were taken in 722 are now not just scattered, but almost planted where they are. They've been there a long time. And so the Lord says, I'm going to strengthen Judah and rescue the house of Joseph. Again, the house of Joseph referring to the northern kingdom. He says, I will bring them back, for I have compassion on them. Right? And again, the word for compassion having to do with the word for womb. There's this womb type love that the Lord has for them. They will be as though I never spurned them. It says their existence, they will be like those who were not rejected, who were not spurned, who were not cast off. For I am their God, and I, ki ani, because I, emphatic I, am Adonai their God, and I will answer them. I am still their God, he says, and I will answer them. So now again, we're transitioning. The Lord now begins to speak in this first person. I'm going to strengthen them. I'm going to save the house of Joseph. He's going to restore them. And so another word for the northern kingdom was Ephraim, right? Then Ephraim is one of the twin sons of Joseph. And so just as the southern kingdom was called Judah, the 10 tribes were called Ephraim or Israel. And so he says in verse 7, the Ephraimites will be like a warrior, like a mighty one, like a gibor. Their hearts will be glad as with wine. Their hearts will rejoice like just overflowing with wine. Their children will see and rejoice or be glad. Their hearts will rejoice in Adonai. Their hearts will exult in Adonai. Verse 8, he says, I will signal for them. And the word for signal here is the pictures of a whistle. I can't actually do it. People. I'm really impressed with people that can do that. But the Lord can do it really well. And he'll whistle this beckoning call. He says, I will signal for them and gather them. And the word for gather here is kibbutz. I will collect them together. I will gather them. It says, surely, because I will ransom them. I will redeem them. And they will be as numerous. They will be as great as they were great. As numerous as they were numerous, he says. Varavu kamo ravu. And their greatness will be as their greatness was. Verse 9, though I scatter them among the peoples, they will remember me in remote places, in distant places. So again, the northern kingdom is really scattered. And some translators actually suggest you could use, because the word scattered here has to do with it's the word zer. So the scattering of seed can also be planted. I prefer scattering, but some suggest you could even say at this point it would even be appropriate to say they were planted, because now for centuries they had been scattered, and therefore they were rooted and planted. But even in these distant places, scattered in all directions, they will remember me. They and their children will, it says survive here, though it's simply live. They will live. They and their children will live and return. Verse 10, he says, I will restore them. I will bring them back from the land of Egypt. Okay, so now they're scattered. Now when it speaks, you're talking about you're talking about Joseph, right? So Joseph, the actual person Joseph, he was enslaved. He was imprisoned in Egypt. Before he rose to second in command, he was imprisoned in Egypt. And then the people were there. So it says, I will restore them from the land of Egypt and gather them from Assyria. I will kibbutz, I'll collect them from Assyria. I will bring them into the land of Gilead in Lebanon. So what you're talking about when it says Gilead, it's talking about borders that are on the northern part of the land. So Gilead is going to be on the northeastern, just on the other side of the Jordan, and then Lebanon is the north and kind of western portion of the land. So he's going to gather them into restoring them to the land until there is no room for them. Going to just fill it up with them. They're going to bring them back from the north, from Assyria, from Egypt, from the land of bondage. Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is from the land of their bondages. Now, here's what's really cool. Now, it says, verse 11, this is the picture of the Lord. Now, he says, he will cross the turbulent sea. Ba'avar bayam tzara. He will pass through. He will pass through. He will ford the sea of distress, the sea of trouble, the sea of bondage. The Lord. Now you have a picture of the Red Sea, but it's the Lord going through it, that he's going through it, and he will calm its raging waves. And literally it says he will strike the waves of the sea. He will strike, like he's going to ford the sea and strike the waves of the sea. All the depths of the Nile, but it literally just says river, Yaor, of the river will dry up. All the depths of the river will dry up. So whether he's bringing them from the north or from the south, wherever he's bringing them from, that which is in their way, that which is a barrier, he is breaking through that barrier. He is going forth and is making dry ground. The pride of Assyria brought down, the scepter of Egypt removed, will be turned aside. So in the end, you have God smashing the pride and the rule of the nations that have held God's people captive. God is passing through. Whether he is the one who brings us through the sea of trouble, and he is the one fighting and making dry land. It's from him. From him are we established. From him the corner, right? From him the is on the tent peg, the peg on which everything hangs. From him is the battle. From him is the war bow. From him the rulers will go forth or go out. And as they go forth from him, they'll be fighting because he is with them, and he's going to go and bring back those that are scattered among the nations, bringing them back, filling up the land with them. Verse 12 says, so I will strengthen them in Adonai, and they will walk in his name, declares Adonai. So I will be their strength. I will strengthen them. The battle that the Lord is describing here is he's using terminology with the war bow that sounds violent. And yet what he's said in the previous chapter was he's going to make this cease. And so the recognition, the understanding is that because he is with them, he is the one fighting the battle. He is the one bringing freedom. And so there is this spiritual freedom, bringing his captives back, bringing back the people from where they were scattered because they hadn't had a shepherd. But now he says, I'm the shepherd. I myself will come. I will be their shepherd. I will put David over them, he said in Ezekiel 34. Son of David, they'll have one shepherd. And here that shepherd is coming on a donkey. Yeah. So anyway, powerful passage, and we're going to get more into the shepherds when we look at Zechariah 11. All right. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Oh, no, I'm going to say hello to everybody, and then I'll say may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sorry. Good morning to Kelly Kenfield, and good morning to Kelly Woods, and to Melody, and good morning to Jessica, and good morning to Elizabeth, and Jesse, and Philip, and Salome. Good morning, you guys. And that may be it. I think I got everybody now. If I missed you, then my deepest apologies. All right, now, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child